Yo internet, what is happening? Today, I'm working on something that isn't mine, but I really wanted to share it with you what I was doing, and it has to do with this gotta have it green Coyote car. Hate or love the color, Cody has allowed me to kind of give this thing a little upgrade. And this and another pile of parts is kind of what we're doing. If you haven't figured out by this box, that's what we're installing. Now he's got things powder coated to match, Cerakoted, all that good stuff. And we're gonna do a fuel system along with the turbo install. Start off by getting in the air and actually got an engine support bar. So I'm gonna drop the K member, he's got a tubular K, and start dropping the exhaust. He's got long tubes and of course cat back, and he's actually going with a bumper exit. So that kind of makes things easier for the install, so I don't have to hook it up to the downpipe or anything like that, but I do have to cut a big like 4-inch circle into the bumper. So that's way down the road, but we're gonna get this off and get the engine supported. And I have yet to do an S197 with tubular K-member as far as headers go, but I'm still gonna do the usual things that I would with the stock K-member, like you pull the motor mount, starter, and steering shaft to get the long tubes out, because that's where I'm gonna start. So day one, got to play with it for an hour and got the engine supported. It's 2 convenient bolts. I use these a lot when I'm taking Coyotes in and out of whatever I'm taking out of, usually something that wouldn't belong in. Anyway, engine should be supported nice and tight. Got some good tension on there so I can delete some items, so I can delete the exhaust. All right, fast forward a little bit, and as you can see in the back, the long tubes are out on this car. And now just gonna kind of go over the bits and pieces that I got all these parts in piles over the past few days. Like I entered at the instructions, I obviously can tell what parts are what here. We looked at the turbo earlier. I do have some boxes over there too. I just remembered, but customer had the exhaust manifolds powder coated. I believe those are intercooler brackets, or brackets for the crossover pipe there. You have to actually discharge the AC, which he already did before he brought the car to me. And turns out, in order to make the header removal, and when you do headers on pretty much any S197 Coyote car, you need to remove that AC line, and it looks like this will kind of route it around things. I haven't obviously taken out the bed to see. Turbo blanket, intercooler, fans, fan shroud, the overflow tank, and some wastegates. Injectors are somewhere in this pile. I'll review the instructions a little more, but I feel like my next step is to get the turbo manifolds on and the crossover pipe, maybe mount the turbo so I can see how it needs to be clocked, because I got to put the housings back together. And then I'm gonna drain the coolant right now, and then once the turbo's on, I need to know where the drain line is going to go, the best place to go in the oil pan. So I'm gonna remove the oil pan, not gonna do it per their instructions. Supporting the engine, because the headers are out, motor mount, starter, all that good stuff are out. So the instructions want you to like punch a hole in this thing and tap it with the grease on the tap. I'm gonna remove the oil pan and put a bulkhead in it with some red Loctite so that it's, you know, worry-free and a little less hackerish. Yeah, so downpipe. I'm sure we got some more exhaust because we're doing a bumper exit, and probably charge pipes in here. That's the only thing that I know that's missing over there that's in here. So now the fun begins. Just like that. Bumper deleted, so I'm going to start draining the cooling system, pulling the fan shrouds, and the gas tank. And then after that's all out of the way, I still haven't looked at the instructions closer or a second time, but I know I got to do a thermostat because I got a 170 reach coming in, and then maybe place the turbo manifolds in and see where they all are. All right, items deleted, and as per the instructions, they highly advise you to hook up the AC line that I usually take out to do headers. So I'm gonna install that next. Got rid of the ECU bracket and I gotta rummage through the parts for the new EC bracket because that gets relocated actually. And then I can hopefully get these manifolds in here on this stint. So, got the driver's side manifold in, comes super close to the radiator. Actually removed the boot for the bolt there for the wire, otherwise it was gonna definitely hit the manifold. So onwards, I'm gonna try and pull the pan now and add the bung once I get one for the it's a bulkhead bung, so the oil drain back. Got the rack just dropped off, deleted the sway bar. Now I'm ready to pull the pan. On3 actually provided a picture for this, so I can actually put that return bulkhead in without having the turbo in. So I can just follow their directions with that. So I'm just gonna disconnect all the wires, other harnesses, and with the tubular K-member the customer has on this cart, should be enough to get the pan out of here, hopefully. And out. So I did end up having to take all the bolts out except the front 2 bolts on the K-member in order to drop it out enough to sneak the pan out. So, but moving on to this front crash bar. All the bolts are out. We gotta replace this with their provided bash bar that the intercooler bolts to. Ford decided to use bolts and spot weld this on, so I gotta cut those off. I think I'm gonna do that now, get the pan out of the way, of course, and maybe bolt that on. Because then I'm waiting for some heat wrap for the AC lines on this side, because they 100% recommend getting the provided AC lines sorted out before getting the manifold in. So I'm at a standstill until Tuesday for that matter. But I'll be able to get some stuff done while waiting for that, like I am now. Along, I only have one long Sawzall blade, so I ordered some more sharp ones because that thing is dull as heck, and there's like 2 welds deep. You can almost see right at the tip of my finger where they are at. So got those coming, and decided to check out the sandwich plate and kind of do that. So it does, this goes in between the oil filter and the oil filter mount on the block, or the adapter I should say. And I kind of routed the turbo oil feed line. There's like 4 different possibilities, and they came with plugs, so you can just pick which one. Since pictures are less than stellar on the On3 instructions, probably gonna use this one and then route it alongside where the alternator wires go up, keep it away from the heat. And they give you 4 plug options. You just gotta pick which one fits the adapter and your oil filter itself. So, and I ordered the bulk fitting to drill and install that, so I'm just gonna wait on that and get this filter situation done. Back at it, and got the bulkhead in and ready to put the oil pan back in, so I can put the K-member back in, rack back in, and so at least the car can be a roller if need be. And customer forgot to supply me some kind of important pipes here. Got the coolant pipe there and some charge pipes that he had powder coated and buried. Forgot about them. Anyway, so there's our oil return. So now I can put the 90° on, and that'll be ready to go when we plumb the turbo for that. Bada bing. And just like that, the pan is in. Now I went with the bulkhead instead of punching through it and like worrying about shavings in the engine. So the whole reason, or the oil pan I should say, it's the whole reason I went with the bulkhead was so that I can drop the pan and know what's, I literally hosed the hell out of that pan. So cat the hat, that is that. All right, back at it today, and like I said earlier, to get the impact bar off, you gotta cut the welds off. But now I can install the intercooler bracket and new bash bar from On3. Pretty sure it goes on like that, but I'm just gonna double check. Intercooler on. Had to delete some, call them air deflectors that draw air into the intake. But yeah, it's bolted in, just gotta tighten the bolts of course. And also had to take the radiator support bracket out and install theirs. Deleted the sway bar a while ago, so now I'm gonna wrap the AC lines in that heat wrap and get the other manifold on. Right after some looking at some research material, here's the new, well, that's the loom. The new AC line kind of goes behind there and wraps in there, and then actually goes to the firewall. And I moved the fuse box out of the way and just have the manifold set in place. I'm putting the studs in there, and I'm gonna get this, all of the nuts on the studs, and cinch this up and finally get motor mounts, K-member and rack back in place, and then I can really start to party. Back on top side, it looks like your biggest clearance or issue is gonna be that AC line from On3, and pretty open there, so that's good. It does get close to some wire wires, so I'm gonna kind of zip tie these closer. Oop, there's my Gatorade, and it spilled. Okay. Anyway, did have to bend the On3 line down a little bit because it was interfering with bolting that in place, but now our business. Back at it again. Subframe, rack, steering shaft, motor mounts, all that good stuff back in. Lines routed. Got the ECU bracket back in. Battery tray and battery back in. And if you noticed, the shroud and the spall fans are in. And I'm in the middle of gonna wire these up because this is what they give you to wire up the spall fans. Obviously we can't connect it to the factory ones, so luckily for my Coyote projects I had a wiring diagram, so I knew which one was the ground wire. They say that the fourth one's not used. I have a feeling this plug was replaced, judging by the awesome electrical tape job. Very common on the S197s. So I know which one's ground. I'll just hook up the rest of the three to the power, and they'll work as they should. Either one fan will be low and then both of them will be on the high, so should work out pretty good. Then I'm gonna tackle the merge pipe finally. Pull back the wiring harness a little more. It was repaired at one point, so just hooked up the ground and the two powers. Now we got a nice clean install of those, and now I think it's time to put that merge pipe on, or at least test fit it and see what I got in store for me. Looking at all the V-clamps, so these are gonna be for the collectors on the exhaust manifolds that go there and there. These little guys are for the wastegate pipes, going down to there. And reading the instructions, it looks like this is gonna kind of piggyback on the lower alternator bolt. So what to do is just take the tension off the belt, take that bolt out, and slip all this in, see how it fits. I'm thinking that, all right, further got the merge pipe done. Belt put back together, tensioner back on, both V-bands on. Next step will be, I think I'm gonna put up the wastegates. A little fun tip that I discovered myself. They have you replace the radiator support brackets, so you can't run a sway bar. Now, here's the AC line going to the condenser. This thing was on the outside. I actually disconnected it up here from the condenser, and then ran it through the hole to get it away from the merge pipe here. Otherwise, that thing was right on top of it. You could wrap it, but I fear it would just cook the whole hell out of that hose. So, a little hack there I kind of discovered. So, pass that along. Kind of got to manipulate the brake line to get it out of the way, because it was hanging right underneath where the wastegates are going to go, and the wastegates exhaust. So yeah, I'm ready to carry on, bolt the turbo on, wastegates, cruising. Moving on, as you can see, the customer had his compressor housing and the turbine powder coated, so they're apart. That's how I received them. So drain has to go at 6 o'clock on the car, and this is the feed, needs to go at 12 o'clock. There's only one way that can go on. What I'm gonna do is install these and then have it loose, and I kind of know by the instructions, because they have pictures of it actually, on which way it needs to orientate. This goes on the driver's side if you're looking from the front and pointing down, so it gives me a good point of reference. I'll clock it and tighten these once the intercooler piping is all in place. And then I can run return line. The feed lines are down the car, so I'll just run that to that. With that fitting, and so here we go. Let's bolt it on. Boom, turb seat's on. Customer wanted a turbo guard, so he's doing without a filter, not a daily. So my next order of business, I left the compressor, the bolts loose there, so I can clock this thing. So the feed is near 12, it's more like 1231. Drains on the bottom, so I can fit the charge pipes and kind of make that clocking the best I can. I've got the charge pipe from the turbo to the intercooler real quick, so I can get the turbo clocked right, like I said. So yeah, there she is. So I'm gonna put clamps on those because that should be done on that side. Maybe put the blow off valve on and then work on the downpipe. Feed line installed. Drain line routed, installed to the oil pan. Actually, I had to take the turbo back off to cinch all the turbine bolts on, or I couldn't get to them without in the car. No big deal, 4 bolts in and out. Gonna re-hook up the charge pipe and then put this big Johnny on. I'm gonna put the O2 sensor on preemptively so I don't have to struggle with that, so I know where it could end up safest. You can kind of service it too. Wastegate's in. Charge pipe to the intercooler's on. I'm gonna throw on the blow-off valve. There's a lot of leeway in this system. These aren't perfect, but the couplings make up for that. And then after I get the blow-off valve, I'm gonna put the downpipe back on. Sort of business, in order to get the charge pipe on, I need to get the manifold back on, and before I get the manifold back on, got to put in some ID. I think he has 1050s or 1000s. These are not in here. I think they're in another bag, but you get the point. Got to pull a fuel rail, place injectors, throw the manifold back on, and then we can party with the charge pipe. Got the intake manifold back on. Probably have to do the rails. They do have, or take them off again, because there's fittings on the back on each end. So, but I just wanted to get the rails in there for kind of a reference. Plus the stock bolts are too long. They bottom out, but they supplied bolts. He's got four innovations, if you can tell by the rails fuel system that we'll be installing. But in order to install the charge pipe, I actually have to trim this out pretty much so it can skink in there. But first I'm like, I'll decide to place the coolant tank that they provide. So this is kind of neat. It reuses the grommet in the, it kind of threw me off, the grommet in the, where the air box went, but that, I was like, oh, what's that fitting for? It didn't show up any pictures. I realized they just stuck a 3/8, basically a fuel line or whatever end on the end, blow into that, it's sealed off, and it goes into there, and then they give you a wonderful, not a remote, but a self-tapper, and you put it in the mounting hole. Little cornball for me, but that's where they want it done. So it's not gonna be in the way of anything, so back at it, here we go. Got the headlight bucket trimmed, and good idea to put some like vacuum line or fuel holes to protect those sharp edges. And I just placed the charge pipe on there. But what I'm gonna have to do, pro tip, semi-pro tip, I bolted the whole fuse box and ECM. But I'm gonna have to take the pipe out to connect the body connector. I mean, it's just these little things that kind of hang you up, and hopefully there's enough clearance for that thing, because it's gonna be pretty tight. I think they said to take that off to bend it. I think I'm gonna do that. So take this, unwrap, take this off so that the wires can bend in, and there shouldn't be a huge issue, because this is a pro tip. I would definitely get this in your charge pipe from your old cold air intake, because it's in a kind of a precarious position, upside down, and to get those little screws in there would be a little tricky, where once that's in there, all you gotta do is plug it in, which we gotta extend that mass airflow harness. I'll show you a simple trick we're gonna do there by just kind of untaping the harness back at the headlight. Hopefully that's the last time I test fit it in there. I'm just gonna hook up the rest of the pipes. It's really tight in here. I had to take the engine harness little protector thing off so the wires could go in there. I've seen a little trick on YouTube where people like modify the bracket, but this should work out. And this is a little tight to the exhaust manifold down there, but and it's gonna be interesting getting a coupler on there like after all this is said and done, but hopefully there's enough flex in the coupler since there's like 3 of them in that one charge pipe. You can see the mass airflow is hooked up down there right above the AC pressure switch. Here's the line coming up. Just had to extend it just a little bit. It did tee out from about here. A whole bunch of juicy fruiting around. Another semi-pro tip. I suggest getting the coolant, at least the lower coolant tube that they provide on way before you put the turbo on. Make your life easier. I had to actually take out my oil return line, kind of just put it back, put it all together. And what I do, I'll show you on here. Just pretend these are hose clamps or rubber clamps. Actually slide it back all the way. Put like a Windex or like oil or something so that you can slide it over, because they make the tubes right up against there and there's no way to like have the coupler that of course you make out of the radiator hose, which is kind of dumb too, slide over and then you can put your clamps on. So cooling system is now done, and I'm gonna finish putting on the charge pipes and then hopefully put the headlights back in and make this thing look like a car again, and put on the exhaust. Yeah, so we're cruising. All right, moving right along. I can't remember if I told my last clip that I disconnected the heater hoses, got them flared out of the way, kind of make room for the fuel system. But I'm gonna get on to making the vacuum line. So I got fittings on the wastegates like this, but with 90. Just a little more durable than just the barb hose. And I'm gonna probably mount the manifold block here, so I get quick boost reference either from the turbo itself, because there's a fitting, there's a 1H pipe thread down there that'll work, or tee off of the manifold itself and then go from there. So then I can feed my blow-off valve and these increase and decrease solenoids from the boost leash and the map sensor. This is the diagram that I came up with. I know they said boost leash, or the instructions say don't modify it, but it's gonna work either. All right, vacuum block mounted, got the wastegates, vacuum lines plumbed to my solenoids and map sensor. So I just gotta make the electrical connections to the boost leash and one more connection to the manifold for the master like boost reference. So we're cruising, and that's almost gonna conclude like the basic turbo system. Gonna pop on the other headlight, pop on the bumper exit exhaust, and kind of see where that lines up on the bumper. I was going to kind of cut a hole in this bumper and put a little steel ring in there for aesthetics, but On3, for whatever reason, made the pipe a little short. So customer's gonna come get that extended off site so I can complete that, because we don't want that coming up short and melting the bumper. And looking at pictures online, that's where a lot of people have theirs end up, which I think is ridiculous. They could have made that come down a lot further because there's plenty of real estate on the bumper. But so now I'm gonna move over and unpackage the fuel system for renovations. I'm not sure the exact part number and everything, but it's definitely got a lot of headroom for, like, if you want to do a 3-2-1 setup on this car, because right now it's just a stock Gen 1 long block. So it looks like it's gonna be drawing some serious amperage to these pumps. Have to make some AN lines. Got the Y there, that's probably for the fuel rail. Big fuse, so on and so forth. So looks like a lot of fun. Kind of fast forward a little bit and got the fuel system all plumbed, checked for leaks, and wired, ready to go. All right, as we fade back in here, I haven't been exactly documenting everything because I've been trying to wrap this up just had a kid, so this will be officially my first video since having a kid. Baby Abel, born right after Christmas. So let me catch you up on what we got, because we're about wrapped up with this. See, my to-do list on it is about done. Just gotta mount the bumper exit exhaust, as I've been saying. We had to extend the tip because apparently they make the kit for 10 to 12 bumpers, not 13 to 14s. And just gotta do, you know, some reminders. Got the fuel system in and the boost controller. So we got all that mounted. It's looking real clean. So gonna hopefully get a bass tune here the next couple of days, and then we can party. I just finished wiring up the boost leash. You gave me that cool console mount. I had to extend the wires to the map sensor was all, even though I mounted it right as close to the engine bay as I can. Got the cluster bezel out, and reason for that is because the N gauge is in there. We're just waiting for the bass tune so I can put the SD card back in there with the bass tune and fire it up. Not much else to report. Fuel system was kind of a big one, but I didn't really want to document that because it was kind of off scope and not necessary. I'm sure For Innovations has videos, and their instructions were really good, so plus it was familiar to me and I didn't feel like I needed to document it. But yeah, we're just about done getting this Turbo Coyote back on the road and winning some street races. Go. Bumper exit installed. Not sure why they had it come out here, but I looked at pictures on the internet, and that's where a lot of them are, especially the 13, 14 cars. So I just gotta fill up coolant, waiting for a bass tune, and we can fire this thing up. All right, first startup. Coyote. First test drive went well. It got 3 pounds of boost. Then it was kind of upset because it wasn't tuned. So we're gonna send this one off. It's been a journey. Journey. This one video covered about, I don't know how many months, you know, because I still have a full-time job, and that's life. And now we're just gonna keep doing more Mustangs. Oh, it's the grimace. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing and liking the video, and we'll see you next time.